Hello everybody, what's going on? I'm Julius from InnoMotion Media, and today I would like to show you how to build an app. To be more specific, I'm gonna show you how to write or code an app in Visual Studio. And this means I'm going to code in C#. I'm kind of thinking that you guys already know how to code. I will not explain to you how to code. I will explain to you how to make an app. Also, I will not show you how to design an app. I've shown you this in another video. I am maybe not lazy enough to not put it into the notification bar right now, but maybe I am, and just go through my channel and find Visual Studio Xamarin XML app designing tutorial. You'll find it on the channel. It's about an hour long and it's a huge topic by itself already. So we're gonna go right into it with no further ado. I'm gonna check if everything seems to be recording fine. I'm recording 2 audio tracks in order just to make sure that I'm definitely having it. So that's okay. This is stereo track here, even though I don't mean that. This is a stereo track, and I'm gonna record. I'm recording another track with my active presenter, I think is what it's called. I hope it's running. I'm just assuming that it is. Okay, so we are going to open Visual Studio 2017 now. You can download this software for free from, I don't know, just type in Visual Studio into the Google search bar or maybe even into Bing, and then you're good to go. No, not quite. I need to drink something because we're going to be here for a while. A little background about myself. I am programming apps now for about 2 to 3 years. I'm self-employed. I have my own company running. We are building apps. You should definitely try the Book of Life. Just type in, if you want to get to all of our apps, just go to the Play Store and type in InnoMotion Media, which is the name of our startup company. You'll get all of our apps there. We are not programming for iOS for certain reasons that I am not sure if I'm supposed to go into them right now. Anyway, doesn't matter right now. Oh, by the way, my interface is German. Yes, it is. I am German, as you may have noticed, but that doesn't matter. Yeah, you just go where I'm pointing at. I'm going to Datei, which means data. What does it say in English usually? Whatever. The first thing that comes to the left, like folder or data basically is what that will be translated. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say new and then new project. Neu and then Projekt for those of you who speak German. Anyway, new project. We want to start off with a all new project, and it will start then asking us what kind of project, what do we want to have in the end. What do we want, an Android app, which is our standard setting right now, or do we want to maybe have a JavaScript project? I don't know, that I didn't even know it supported that. Whatever. Yeah, of course we want to write in Visual C#. That's the language that we are coding in. We want to write, not, if you start coding, you probably start with console apps or console applications, but we want to start with a classical Android app. So let's just go and call this app to make this very indistinctive. Go OK, and then we'll be here for a few seconds. Do I have anything to say? Well, I already said that I'm already thinking you know how to code. So I'm not teaching you how to code C# right now, or Java, or Pascal, or Python, or whatever. You're supposed to know this by yourself already. I'm just gonna tell you how to put that knowledge into making an app. Okay. So now that everything has loaded, we don't need this get started.xamarin. One thing I'll need to show you before you can start with app development, you'll need to download certain SDKs. Those stand for something, 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 and you'll find those, I think, under extras, and then Android SDK Manager. It'll start up this little window. Is everything still recording? I'm so afraid that it doesn't. What the hell is this curve? Anyway, it'll start and it'll ask you to download a few things. You will need the target SDK of what you're programming in. So usually go with whatever is enabled as a standard. Usually the first platforms that are still in, the earliest platforms that are still in use are Android 4.1, and you can start to yeah, you can start from here, but usually it's enough if you just download maybe 6 and 7. You can download everything you'll need, of course, the APIs, the SDK, and yeah, I don't even know what all of these do. Just download them. It'll take a while. As you can see, this is a lot of megabytes. This is just 1 GB. And yeah, I could probably go for some updates now. I don't need any updates. Once this works, you're good to go. Also, you'll need to have the emulator inside of Visual Studio. When you are about to install Visual Studio, it'll ask you some things, and you will have to. Maybe I'll show you this. I think I can by going Visual Studio Installer. I still have it on my computer. I think this might be very important before I'll let you. Or before I'll go deeper into programming an app, because programming an app once everything is set up right is not that difficult. It needs to do an update now. Of course it needs to do an update now. What else? Is that already it? Because that'd be okay. No, it's doing it now. Damn it. Alright, anyway. As I was saying, setting it all up might be a bit difficult. Then in the end, programming an app is not that hard. And I'll show you the basics, and yeah, that's basically it. The video is not supposed to be that long. The video about how to design an app is a lot more difficult because I'm literally explaining XML language there, which of course is a language by itself. So okay, it's downloaded now and it's installing, and yeah, as you see, I'm not very well prepared. I'm gonna drink some more. You may skip ahead, I don't know, you probably already did. I am too lazy to edit and cut. Anyway, here we are. This looks better, right? So it's still doing some preparations, of course. And now we go. Once you go, and I hope I'm not fucking anything up, I go with the Visual Studio Community because it's for free. But let's say you are to choose anything else. You get this window, and then I hope... probably not. Oh yeah, exactly. That's where I wanted to go. So it'll ask you what kind of components do you want for this. And for the development of Android apps, you will need, let me just see real quick. You'll need this here so that you're able to code in C#. It already is 12 GB now. You'll need the .NET development kit, another gigabyte, and you'll need mobile development with .NET. Very important. You don't need JavaScript, you don't need anything else. You need 3 checks, which are the first 2, and then the first one under mobile and gaming. It'll add up to, yeah, something like that. I remember this being a little more, like 30 GB. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't think I am, so maybe that's just because I've already have this installed. And then you hit install, and then you'll just wait for hours. Anyway, good. That was that. Now we're all set up, and you would be here. You would have gone to new, and then new project, and then, as I already did, you clicked Android project. For those of you who skipped this because they couldn't bear the waiting, I went Android and then empty app, and then just called it something and went okay, and then I ended up right here. And this is already our app. And an app itself is split into different classes like any object-oriented programming language such as C#, but in our case we would not call those necessarily classes. Yes, you get a lot of classes, but the app itself is split up between activities. And unfortunately I cannot, because my emulator doesn't work right. If you connect your phone via USB and enable the develop options on your phone, Google how to do that. It's different for each and every individual phone. Once you've done that, you can connect your phone via USB to your computer, and you can debug on your phone, which is what I'm always would recommend you doing. Don't use the emulators. They're stupid and slow, and I hate them. Anyway, yeah, and since I don't have the emulator right now, and they're already almost always, that's what I meant. They're always having problems. I can't debug anything for you. You'll just have to trust me that what I'm saying is right. And believe me, it is. Anyway, as I was saying, everything splits in between activities. And we're going to start the main activity up. It'll set some things up already for us. First things first, since we clicked on we want to build an app first, we have this basic setup at the beginning, starting with the this is like as in you could compare this to the imports in Java, or the I think it's also called using in Pascal or whatever you were starting off with. This is basically the components you're then referencing inside of here. If you were to open up a new folder, you can just go right click here and then somewhere and then it says add and then new folder. To use the classes inside that folder, you could put a using here, same name as the folder name, using my folder, which I haven't set up, so it doesn't know what that is. It says I don't know this, and do you want to delete it? Yes, I'd like to delete it, and it already deleted another one, whatever that was. Anyway, and that's the way how you would get to your classes. Otherwise, of course, in your source code you could go my folder dot and then your class to reference it. Variable x equals new, and then my folder dot my class something constructor, and then that's it. Okay, that's how you get to your files. Speaking of files, you have one very important folder, that's the resource folder. The resources folder includes all your layouts, which is here on the main layout. There's already a layout file set up for you, and the mipmap HTTPI to XXXTPI folders. I don't know exactly what they'll do because they're a bit different of what I'm using. I'll delete all of these. Yes, I don't want them anymore. Then I'll be adding another folder, and these folders are called drawable minus XX XHDPI, and that's the first drawable folder for the biggest layouts. And then we'll need another one called, and that's how the mipmap folder before was at XSHDPI, and yeah, we can set up a third one. This is to support multiple screens. I've done a big tutorial about this also within the other tutorial that I hope I'll be able to link. I'll at least be able to link it down in the description. So check out that one if you need to know more about supporting multiple screens and enabling the design and making your app look fly and all of that. So we are now supporting like a lot of phones, starting from very high resoluting phones such as the Samsung S9 or S8 or S7, then to something like S6, S5, then we go S4, and then everything beyond will be HDPI, then LDPI and MDPI. But these phones are so rare, and you basically the app wouldn't start anyway because the target framework is too low. Good. For the settings, you can go right click and then settings to your solution, and it'll bring up, oh sorry, that is incorrect actually. You go right click to your app and then settings, and it'll bring you to different settings such as the manifest, which is a neat little extra manifest. Of course, the usual manifest is under properties and it's an XML file as well, but whatever you do in here, if you'll change something here, like for example what is it called, permissions in English, if you add a permission such as access network state, which you'll need to do this anytime, and then you go back to the manifest, it'll add that for you then, so you don't need to do anything here. This is some kind of editor for the manifest. Right now we don't need any permissions. You can set everything here that you'll need to know, also about how to debug it and all of that. Just leave it at standard. The only thing you will have to tamper with is maybe your minimum SDK, which I think you can go with 6.0. That's fine enough. You'll support like 94% of all available phones, and then whatever you want to do, like for example you want to have, or you almost always want to have the internet permission enabled. If you don't, then your app is almost impossible to do anything. It won't even be able to display ads, which are very important nowadays live, and it's the almost only source of income for me, and a very good and reliable source of income. Okay, yeah, I'm not gonna go too deep into it because it's something you'll have to play with, and it really depends on what kind of app you're using. For example, do you want to do something with GPS? Okay, you probably want to access locations, right? I don't even know what that does. I would now check it because I could probably use it because there's something with location. I'm gonna do all of those with location actually because just to be sure. Okay, I don't need a mark location. I don't need that. Okay, these three are actually fine. But you'll have to find that out depending on what kind of app you're doing. There's no general recipe for how to enable what and what not. For the debug purposes, we're jumping a bit, but that's fine. You don't need to have any permissions set yet. As soon as you go to release and you don't have the permission set, it won't work. It may not even give you an error message. It'll just stop. So right, debug. There's two configuration settings, one for debugging, one for releasing. It's basically very self-explanatory. Set it to debug, and you're debugging your app. Set it to release, and you're getting a production-ready version of your app that is no longer connected to your computer. This down here is your debugging window, your log console. It'll tell you exactly when an error occurs. It'll tell you, and this is also connected to IntelliSense, a program that you can see here. If I'm doing some bullshit, it'll say, I don't know what the fuck that is, and it'll say this down here in this certain line. If you double click, it'll jump to this line. So if I was here and I click here, it'll jump to the right line and tells you what the fuck is that. It'll even give you some possible corrections, and in this case, it'll go with, you know, generate private object. I just generated a private object because it doesn't know what it is. Anyway, okay, so we are almost at the point of talking about programming. I started at the usings, which are already set up for you. Everything right here is more or less common in C#. You have your namespace called app. You can of course change that. Right. So the activity, as I already said, a class. The classes in Android are called activities. You have classes as well, of course, because this is just basic programming here. But your activities are basically your different screens in your app. So it's kind of hard to demonstrate that, but you would say, you could say I'm starting my browser, and my browser is my main activity. Even though if I were to, so this is like my home activity. It doesn't do much other than tell me what pages I've been looking at. So I may go google.de, whatever, and this is now the surfing activity. It's another activity, and even if I were to do something in here, I'm still in the same activity, the surf activity. So this is how you were to look at your app. So maybe your app starts with like a splash screen where there's a logo of a loading screen. This is your first activity then. And then it'll go to the main menu. The main menu would be your second activity. You can call your activities however you'd like. You could call them main activity is more or less general. You could call them main menu _ activity to be sure what it is. Once you set enter, it says, do you want to change everything in here? And it also changed the class name. Right, so everything's split up into activities, and activities themselves have a manifest. This is a tiny manifest. You can add a lot more to this manifest. For example, you can go, it'll tell you what you can do. This is very smart of Visual Studio, that it tells you what is possible. What am I gonna use? I don't even know. Whatever you'll need. Very commonly I'll use theme, and then I don't know the themes by heart right now. There go like I forgot, like holo.light something, and this is just your average theme. If you don't have anything in there, it'll just go with the standard theme. These are the kind of things that you would that would kind of affect your design. Like for example, you would call off, there's something called an alert dialog, alt equals new, you know. I'm not telling you how to code right now, but you could do that. And the way these alerts looks, they already have, yes, I know you want context. They already have, no, it doesn't. Okay, whatever it wants, it doesn't matter right now. They already have some kind of standard design. You don't need to design them. You can do that with a layout inflator, but you don't have to. And it'll take the standard design which is set in your manifest for this activity. As I was saying, you would need to set a theme. I don't have a theme right now, so it'll take the standard theme, but there's plenty of themes available. You can download themes so that you don't have to take care of every bit of design yourself. So there's a basic theme, and if you use a button and create a button, then the button has, you know, just the basic theme, whatever theme is referenced in your manifest. This is the manifest of your activity. The label is what it says in the upper left corner. If you set your activity to be into full screen, you will never ever see it, unless of course it's set to be shown into the task manager of your phone, and then I think the labels are visible. So don't go like, you know, bitch or something like that, even though you think no one's ever seeing this. There's a chance someone will, so just call it, or whatever your name of your app is. My goodie app. Just to be sure. Alright, moving on to the next line of code. Right, this is a class. You know what a class is. I'm not going to explain that to you right now. Just make sure your class inherits of activity. It needs to do that. If it doesn't, it won't know what it is anymore. It won't even be an activity anymore. And it'll say on create, what the fuck is that? I'm overriding the onCreate method. There's nothing I'm inheriting this from. So yes, you'll need to be an activity. Yeah, this is just, it'll set this up for you anyway. If you were to add a class now, which you will, you just go to the folder that you want it in, for example, the root folder, then you go add, and then you go new element, and you don't want another activity, no, you want just a basic class. And if you put up a new class, it'll be just like that. It doesn't inherit anything, it'll just be another class. You can make the static, you can build objects off of it, yeah, to your pleasure. Anyway, so we have inherited an activity. Let's remove this piece of shit right here. And an activity has something, and this is very important now. I need to drink something. I'm not used to talking that much. An activity has something that we are calling a life cycle. And this is very important, and you should probably look this up if you're not sure about this. I'm just going to give you a basic explanation of what a life cycle is. You may already know it by looking at the name of it. The first method that is called as soon as your activity is called the onCreate method. It'll start here. This is basically the start function. But there are a lot more things or states your activity can be put in. For example, it could be called into protected, override, void, and then on, and then you get everything that it can be put into. For example, it can be destroyed. Your activity can be destroyed. If you set this, it'll already give you the base class. This activity is called whenever. Does it not tell you that? No. Whenever your activity is destroyed, either from the back button on your phone or via the task manager. Before this activity is called, also there is an activity called on stop. On stop, for example, is called when your activity is just set into background. Then we have protected, override, void. On resume, that was on restart. I don't even know what that is. It's probably called before on resume, but I'm usually using on resume. Yep. And this is called whenever your activity is called once it's already been called before. So it'll go from onCreate to onResume, and whenever your activity is called again, it's not gonna call onCreate again, it's gonna call onResume again. So you'll have to know this in order to set your whatever you want to happen in your app, put it into the right function or method in this case. Another very important function that you're probably going to enjoy is I think it's called on Windows. It's not here, so it might not be an override. Protected void on Windows. Where would I find it? No, it's definitely an override. Protected void. Is it a bool maybe? I'm just gonna go. I know it. On Windows. I can't find it right now. There's a method called on Windows focus change. Let us just find real quick where this is. It's something that is very important, and I don't know it by heart. Big projects, apps. Then go to my current app, the Book of Life. I'll need you all to check this out. Again, just type in InnoMotion Media into the Play Store screens, and I think we find this maybe under main activity already. On stop, on resume. There it is. Why didn't he say that? Public? Oh, because it's not protected. It's public. It's a public method. Yeah. Anyway, so here we go. Banging, and it'll tell you I haven't found something. What's the problem? Something's missing. Using system. Okay, yeah, probably use system. It'll just enter the system. Now, otherwise, you would have to go system.boolean, but that's not necessary right now. And this class is called whenever the focus changes to your activity. For example, if you have an alert that is shown on top of your activity kind of goes into the background, but it won't go to on stop. And once you return, I don't think it goes to on resume. No, it goes to on Windows focus change. And you can do a lot of fun stuff with this lifecycle method. But you don't need those. They're not mandatory. The only method or function, yeah, it's a method, it doesn't return anything, it's void, is the onCreate function. It's the only method that you actually need, because from here you can call your first function. My first function. And what I would usually do, no, actually, I'm going overboard, a little bit overboard. Let's just go. We have been here. You inherit of activity, which requires you to have the onCreate method. It's already there because we said we want to make an app. So Yeah, there we go. That's an app now. And the first interesting line of code is neither this nor that. Also not that, because once again, I'm not explaining coding, I'm just explaining app creation. And this is something you will have to do for every activity. You set your content view. This is very simple. So under value, under values is where you put all your hard-coded strings, so that you can translate them later. Under layout, there is a folder, there's a thing, a data? What would they say in English? There is a thing, there is something in there, which is your layout file for your app. You can of course do your layout programmatically, but it's just a lot of lines and code that are just messy and don't look very nice. So just use the designer. Once again, this is all in my XML tutorial. Look this up. The only thing you'll have to know right now is you are referencing your file, your layout file here that goes with your activity. Usually you would call this the way the activity is called. Main menu underscore activity is what I would call this, and then I'd reference this under resource.layout. This is where it lays. There it lies, under resource and layout. By the way, you're not referencing your folders here, you're referencing your resource manager, resource designer, sorry. The resource designer then has all the files in there that are in your resource that you are, it's auto-generated. Don't mess around with that. As soon as you put a picture into your app, into drawable folders, it will get references here, and you can now references under the resource, and then, for example, a drawable. Sorry, resources is resource dot. It should be resource dot drawable. What's the problem? Maybe I'll need to spell it correctly, but resource dot drawable. Why don't you have that? Okay, probably I probably don't have it because I don't have a drawable yet. I'll probably set this up as soon as I'll put a drawable in there. Whatever, don't matter right now. This again would be how to code. Yeah, so we are referencing our layout file here. I would always do this within the onCreate method because it's always there. It's basically the first thing that happens, and you should probably do it under onCreate. I wouldn't even know what happens if you wouldn't do it here. It's pointless. You don't need to play around with that. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, from our onCreate function, we shall start our first function. For example, we want in our app, maybe we'll have the user input something. Let's say, what are we gonna do? Just as an example, we are having the user click a button and it counts the damn button clicks. So we would probably need, yeah, you could say you would maybe do this into two functions. I'm just gonna go with one, and this function is called do everything. So I'm just, as you see, the function doesn't exist, or the procedure doesn't exist just yet. So what I'm doing is clicking here and just go generate it, and there we go. Do I want this to be void? Yeah, sure, why not? So as soon as our onCreate method is done, the first thing it now does is it does something. In this case, it does everything. And yeah, that's all you need to know about life cycles. Once again, once you would now go back to once you would put your app to the background and then return to your app, it would not call this function again. This function would then need to be called from out of onResume, not onCreate anymore, right? I think you got that. If you're not sure about this, just Google life cycles Android, and there's probably plenty of tutorials, and there's a lot you are going to learn from that. Anyway, basic life cycling, we're done with that now. Right, we want to do everything. So we can do some calculations now, of course, like for every click, increment the click, but it doesn't really make any sense because we have nothing. We can't we have nowhere to input this. We have nothing, and this is why we are going to use our main layout file now just once, very short. Basically, this is our root layout, which matches its parent, which is the phone, which is very fine for our root layout right now. We'll open this up. I'm not going to go very deep into this, or actually, I'm not even going to be into this superficially, just ever so slightly superficial. We are going to want to. I've done something wrong. There we go. We want a button in our main layout. All we want is a button. And a button in a layout would look, and I'm actually able to show this to you, button, something like that. Button doesn't have an orientation. It does have a height and a width, and let's just set the width to 200 dp and the height to match parent. That's fine. So it'll match the whole screen. It'll be high 200 density independent pixels. I'm not going to explain to you what that means. Go look it up in my other tutorial. You'll need to know why this is not a good thing to do. Why you should probably not go with hard-coded DP, even though DP is the best way of doing it then if you have to. Anyway, so our button has a text Android dot, is it Android dot text? One, I don't know. No, it does not. It is. Counter equals nothing. Counter equals 0. Why not? And the most important value, most important attribute here is Android.id. Usually IntelliSense would tell you, after you spell out Android, would give you ideas of what to do. Oh, no, wait, this is at plus ID? Damn it. You're supposed to tell me that. At plus ID? Okay. Sometimes IntelliSense doesn't work right. In this case, I'll have to look it up real quickly. So under resources, then layout, and then literally any layout. So it's add plus ID. There you go. This is the line of code that I was looking for. Add plus ID. So my button. Okay. So this registers the ID of our button now into our resource designer file, or at least it should. It hasn't. It may take some time before it does that. Maybe you have to rebuild your app, which you would under right click and then rebuild it, rebuild the whole solution. And actually, I think I'm in the wrong folder. I think this is the resource designer. There's another one. This may be a little bit hidden. It doesn't matter. It'll show up somewhere here, and you see it gets IDs now. It gets an ID, a randomly assigned ID. So what you can do now in your main activity, which has references our file, if we were to reference a different button now, it would get a crash, of course. So if we had like two layouts and we inflate the wrong layout and then reference another button from another layout, it wouldn't work. Anyway, so we want our button now. Okay, so something is missing here. So button. Oh, what is a button? We use Android.widgets. So now we have a button. There's a lot of different types you get to know along the way, but for now it's my button. And yes, of course, this could be a global variable. We just need it in our one function. So I'm going my button equals new button. Give it a context. Right. So I don't know if this is something that usually exists in C#. This refers to, as you see, this activity. So our button that is now being created needs a context in which it is created. So in this case, it's this. This keyword could be referencing, for example, if you have private int x and y, and we could go this dot x and y, and it's equals 10 or whatever. It doesn't need the this, but if we were to have int xy in here, so this does make sense now, because as you see, x and y in this case means the x and y from the function, and this is always our context. So from within our context, we want the x and y. So this is why this works. Also, if you want to deliver the context to some, so let's say we want, it doesn't make sense here, but we could go context, stay there, ctx, and we need some more using Android content, and now we can put our context in here and work with that. This is unnecessarily, of course, and this is very unnecessary, because we are in our context, so we don't need to deliver the context into our function. But if we were to be in another class, so we could go public class xy, doesn't inherit from anything, just is another class, and and you can give xy a constructor. How does that go? I think it's public void xy open parentheses. So this should be our constructor now. Needs to start with a big letter. Okay, whatever. Is that our constructor? No, I don't think it is. I forgot how to build a constructor. Is it override, void, and then xy? I literally forgot. Okay, I forgot. But you know what a constructor is. And, or do you? Or do I have to show this to you? Yeah, how do you build a constructor? Let's see real quick. Where do we have a constructor? We have one in almost any recycler view class. Recycler view, and the chat adapter should have a constructor that look at this. It doesn't have a returning type. That's why it didn't work. This is how you do it. Goodbye. So it's just public xy. There you go, and it works. And for example, we would need to do some calculations in another class, and but we would need, for example, to start a function from the other class. We can deliver the context by going context xy, and just call it context ctx. And if we were to reference it as start of our class, like variable xy equals new xy, and it'll say we need a constructor because we want a context, and we can give it a context of our activity, and now we can continue to work with our activity. You know, you get the point. Okay, that's that real quick. Let's not delete too much. Let's just delete that. This doesn't exist anymore. I know. Now we have a button, and as I said before, this button needs to be referenced to something. We don't need to go new button if we reference it immediately. Otherwise, you would now do the variable, and you know how to do that. No, we can go find view by ID. There's different ways of how to do this. I'm casting it now. Resource.id, and that didn't work. It should work. Resources.id? No. Okay, that kind of sucks right now. It's definitely resource.id, but resource.id, yeah. So for some reason, it may be the wrong resource. Wait, let's go resource dot, and then this is a bit annoying because you have to click it away, then ID, then click it away again, and then dot, and I think it was called my button. Was it? Is it a big I? It's a big I. Let's spell it correctly, at least. Of course, yeah. Then the name of the button, and then a semicolon, and it'll say it doesn't have that. Okay. Yes. Why is this? This could have multiple reasons. I'm gonna just clean up the solution real quick. I've seen this happening before. It may have something to do because we have been already opening up the maybe because we have already been opening up the resource designer, resource ID missing. Like I said, just try rebuilding the app again and saving the ID. Resource Android or something, I don't know. Can't find resource ID. No, that's not it. Yeah, okay, doesn't matter. I've run into this problem and I was able to fix it by I forgot what. I think just restarting Visual Studio. I'm not gonna try it out now. You're probably never gonna run into this because you are probably never gonna open up the resource designer. Just don't. Just leave it alone. I'm gonna rebuild the project now, and then maybe it'll get somewhere. If not, forget about it. It kind of sucks that it doesn't do it right now. What we can do, we can just build. We can't because it's building our app. It says one mistake. Oh, there we go. Rebuilding cleaned the thing. So now it has ID, and now probably our resource designer has a class called ID, and there is my button, and my button has an ID now. Good that we sorted that out that easily. Yeah, once again, don't open up the fucking resource designer. It'll just give problems. Anyway, it found ID and it also found .my button. Why wouldn't it? It's a static constant. So now we have our button. Now we can do stuff to it. And by the way, I can show you my button right now because what okay. Of course, width is supposed to be that, and height is supposed to be something, and our button looks a little bit better now. Zoom away. It's a bit high for a button. We'll just go 100. And since we want our button to be in the center, Android.gravity equals center. I think that's the way you do it. No. Why not? Doesn't even. Okay, maybe because I spelled gravity wrong. It's supposed to tell me beforehand what options I have, and there you go, button sits in the center. Okay, so we have a button stating counter 0. We have this button referenced in our activity, and we want to do something to our button which we can't test, but trust me, it'll work. Once our button is clicked, something needs to happen, and this is very easy. So we can do mybutton.click. And we are going to write a plus equals delegate, open curly parentheses, and then everything we want to have happen in whenever the button is clicked, whatever happens here. There's another way of doing this. You could go mybutton.click and then not a delegate but button function, no parentheses, just a semicolon, and it'll say you I don't know what to do. And it doesn't work because I spelled button incorrectly once again, and it'll tell you now some more things like generate that function, and we are getting some weird looking function that we can't access, but this is our function. If you want, if there's more to happen than just a little bit, you would little stuff that happens you put in here. If there's a lot of things going on, just give it another function and you have a lot more room. Plus you can tilt the functions. By the way, strg m and o opens and closes, oh no, it just closes all your functions at once, making it a lot easier to look at things. Okay, anyway, yeah, we are not going to do it like this. We're going to do it with a delegate. So we are just delegating our code inside our code, and we want something to happen to the button. And this button variable is, of course, our button. If this weren't a button, it could be something else. It could be something like an image button, and image button doesn't have a text anymore. And then we would need to reference an image button, because now, since it is a button, we go my button dot, and then we have all the attributes to our button. For example, my button dot text. Isn't that simple? We can give it a text. As you may already know, everything you do inside your code, everything you do inside your XML or AXML, which stands for Android something mockup language, everything you do inside your AXML yields to what you do into your code. So my button will now, when it's generated, when it's visible on create has been called, it will have this text. It will no longer say counter 0, because I overrode this here. But we want to do something. So what we said was, whenever we click the button, we want to increment the number of clicks on it. It said counter 0. You remember that the button itself stated counter equals 0, or in this case counter double dot. I always forget what these 2 points are called in English. I think it's colon. There's a way of finding that out real quickly, because I'm gonna use this a little more. Doppelpunkt in German means double dot or colon, right? Colon, I was correct. So it's a colon. Counter colon 0. So whenever we click a button, I know you could probably know how to do this now, but just for the sake of this, we would go integer. We want to start at 0, whatever. Integer counter equals 0. So yeah, no, that doesn't make sense, because then it would restart at 0. We need to have our integer outside of our click function. So whenever we click the function, whenever we click our button, we want to have my button dot text be equal to counter colon, then an empty space plus, and then our counter, but since it's an int, it needs to be set to a string, and this will work just fine. So whenever we click our button, it says counter 0. Great. We want to increment the counter after before we've clicked it, so it doesn't say 0 at the beginning. So this is very simple. You go counter plus plus. Of course, you could go counter equals counter plus 1. This is the same as I did counter plus plus. Same goes, by the way, for counter plus for counter minus minus. That will work as well. Of course, it would not add the number 1, but it would subtract the number 1. And this is it. This is all you need to do here. There we go. So if we are now to start our app, it'll start on create function, reference in the layout file, which exists. Otherwise, we would get an error here. So it'll just, the app would start and just look like this. On each and every screen, by the way, because we set this to be in the center, so it'll always be in the center no matter how big the phone is, or even if it is a tablet. So the button is now almost rendered. It will still do the do everything, and call the do everything function. We gave it a context which we don't need right now. Of course you can go, no you can't, anyway. So it will go here, it'll register the click. It won't do it. It'll now just register this. This is an event, right? An event handler. So whenever this event now happens, these lines of code are happening. So the counter gets initialized with 0. We press the button, our counter immediately gets a new value, which is 0 plus 1. So the counter now has the value 1, sorry, and it'll put a text onto our button stating counter colon and then 1, because our counter now says 1 as an integer, and we parse the integer to a string. I don't think we're parsing, we're actually converting, but it doesn't matter. Counter now has the value 1 because we incremented it. Next time we click it, counter now has the value 1, getting the 1 gets added, so it'll go counter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, one more thing. This might not work. I'm just thinking of this because, as you all know, C# and Android, and they all run in different threads. We are doing this right now on our main thread. Maybe we don't want to do this on our main thread because, first of all, maybe we are doing some heavy calculation. I mean, we're adding 1 to something. This will take at least a nanosecond, and maybe we'll add 10 and it'll take 10 times as long. No, not really, but you know what I'm saying. Maybe we'll do a lot of work into one line of code, especially if you're doing some downloading, and the app will now be stuck until the download is done. Nothing will happen anymore until this line of code is done. You know, you could go download something and this will just take very long. So you don't want to have everything on your main thread. You want certain things to be on another thread, and this may not work because right now we are touching our main thread, which is the UI thread, and I think it would work, but there are some things that wouldn't. For example, if you have a timer that would now run down, and once the timer is elapsed, you would go timer elapsed. It doesn't work because I don't have a timer right now, and you would do something in your timer like counter plus plus, and then put that to a string, right? Such as this. You would do this from a counter, right? Every second it should add 1. The counter doesn't run on the UI thread. Of course, the counter runs on its own thread. So it can't touch the UI thread. So even if you would do that, nothing would happen. So let's say we were to be in a counter. It wouldn't be my button.click. Instead, it would be my counter.elapsed. And we would change our thread. And this is actually very simple, but I probably don't have it. Yeah, there you go. Run on UI thread is where you want to do that. And I think, oh, come on, please. It's run on UI thread, and it's 2 open parentheses and then an equal sign and a smaller than, and then we can go this. It's correct. How awesome is that? And whatever happens now will be forced to run on the UI thread. You could do this to anything to be sure it's being ran on UI thread. In this case, I think it's pointless because this is our UI thread right here. Everything is UI thread, but just bear this in mind. Or, as I said, you may want to have things done asynchronously, whatever. You want them in another thread. And I'm gonna do this as the last thing, and then we're almost already done. So let's say we want to do some heavy duty work. So we have a function called private, oh Jesus Christ, private void heavy duty work, where there is some downloading or whatever is happening. I said heavy duty work, doesn't matter, heavy duty work. And you want this to happen after you've done do everything. Heavy duty work, okay. But since it is so much work and you don't want to block your own app because you have to do this, you can put this into another task. You could more or less simply go you can't do this from onCreate, but you could do this from do everything. We're calling our function now here, zack, and we are not gonna go private void. We are gonna go private task, right? And it's gonna say, I don't know what task is, and we are gonna use the system threading one. Alright, so it says now, I don't know, it doesn't work for me because we need to await something, and that didn't work. Ah, right, of course. This is a void. This needs to be private async task. Heavy duty work. And this needs to await something. We don't. Why is that not? Ah, of course. Private. Oh wait, is it private? No, it's just private void, isn't it? But then await doesn't work. Ah, of course. I'm an idiot. It's private asynchron void. So, and now since this function happens asynchron, everything here happens synchronous. Is it synchronous? Probably. But not this, because it's awaited. And this will happen, even though this hasn't finished, it'll do whatever is underneath. Okay? I just debugged my app. And we can await this function because this function that we are awaiting is a task. And whatever happens now here, we can go task.run, and then I think it's the same as this weird syntax. Open, close, close, and there you go. And now anything that happens, await the download, whatever, will now work. It says, okay, yeah, of course, it's await the task. That's what you're supposed to do. Right. Good. Everything that happens inside of here now, also, by the way, you can still run something on UI thread here, even though it's in another task. So if you want to go back, that's actually a good example right now. So let's say you have to do some heavy duty downloading, some megabytes, whatever. Then you are awaiting your task from within an async method. You have your async task. Now it's not void anymore. It's now a task, and this task will have everything that is wrapped around this await will then be waited for, and everything that is then run on UI thread will then happen as soon as it's ready, right? And it still continue. The app is still workable. You can do stuff with it, whatever. Okay, so we're almost done. Let's just say we want to go to another activity. I'm going to show you how that is done. We would have 2 or 3 or more activities. There are usually a lot of activities in your. The bigger the app is, the more activities you have. So I'm gonna go with add, then new element, and new activity, yeah, just for the sake of the call activity 2. Of course, this is bad name conventioning. Same lifecycle, everything the same, different label. Only, by the way, the main launcher is now set to false by default. It's not here anymore. You'll need to have one activity that has a main launcher. Without that, nothing starts. It'll give you an error and say, I don't know what to start now. By the way, we can now set our content view once more. I don't know why it doesn't do that. Set content view and then resource.layout. And since we only have one main layout file, but if we'd had another layout file, we could put this to this activity now. But how are we going to start this activity? This is very, very simple, actually. Let's do this. Here, it wouldn't make any sense. We wouldn't have to run this on UI thread. It wouldn't need to be awaited, and it's pointless to put this in an async method. But it will work, probably. What you're going to do is very simple. Start activity. Doesn't that make sense? No, not multiple, just one. And then you just go, I think you go type off, and then you can give it your name, which is main. No, which is just activity 2. Bang. And this will start our second activity. But the first activity still is in the background. If the user now was to press the back button, which you, by the way, can override on back pressed. So this is what happens when the user presses the back button. You could block anything from happening here, or you'd just let the user use the back button. The back button would now, if you were in this activity and he clicks on the back button, would now lead back to this activity. And I think even close it. Maybe you don't want that. Then you go finish. So now we are basically, if you'd start our app now, it would do everything. The button would register to do something, but before the button is even visible, it would already have started the second activity where there is nothing happening anymore. And this one will be gone because it's finished. But now this activity is gone. We are here, and maybe we want to have another button. Let's just say we had a button again. Maybe we have one. I don't know. And maybe we don't want anything like this to happen. Maybe we just want to go from our button now. Go back to start activity. Type of main menu activity, and once it is clicked, we also want to finish our current activity. And if you're not sure what this finishes, just go this finish, and you see the context of this activity is now being finished, so this activity is finished. It doesn't exist anymore, and we're back here. There you go. But this activity immediately starts this activity again, and it'll wait until we click our button, which is referenced with my button. And what this would actually work. So this app right now, just so you know, would start up. It would basically show this, but only for a slight second, because it's already done starting the new activity and finishing the old one. So we are here. Now we have our button still saying counter 0. We don't need the counter anymore. And as soon as we click our button, we go back to our first activity, and the other activity is closed. But this activity brings us back immediately to this activity. So whenever you click the button, you'll be sent back to your second activity. Okay, so this is how you program an app. Isn't that simple? You can, you have to summarize it. You have one main activity that references your main layout file. You design your app nicely in your main layout, or you don't, and just use stock buttons. Then you start your functions from within onCreate. You send them through the life cycles. Maybe you don't have a life cycle. You want everything to be done sort of more or less at once, or you may want to have some things done on a certain point in your app, wherever you do it. If you have a button, the first thing I'll do is reference my button. I'll do this in onCreate all the time. I need to have my button registered as soon as they're visible. When onCreate is finished, when we're here, the app now is visible, right? It's not visible prior to that. So your buttons need to work as soon as they're visible, right? And this is why init, usually I would call this button init buttons, right? So I know what it does. Now I'm just calling it do everything. And then we reference our button. If you want to use our button somewhere else, just make the button globally available, like, button, my button, and then you can do stuff to it. Right? Also, one last thing. If you want to have a button that you want to set programmatically, it's very simple. Button another button equals, this time it's equaling a new button because the button doesn't exist yet. It wants a context. It can have a context because we have a context. And the button would need some attributes, such as another button, Jesus Christ, another button dot, I don't know, dot width, and then set the width to something, and the height, of course, I don't know, this, whatever. Okay, it's not. It might be set with, so yeah, it actually is. Right, and then you have the same attributes as in the XML. Another button dot text or dot click or whatever. Right, so now the button is there, but it's nowhere to be seen because it has to be put into somewhere, such as a layout. So we have this layout. Give it an ID, Android ID dot. Oh, it does that now root layout, whatever. Reference this in your activity. That was a linear layout. ln equals, I'm just so lazy right now, find view by ID, but it is a linear layout, not a button, and it was called something linear layout. Yeah, it's not written into because I didn't press save. It was called root layout. Put it in here, it'll find it now because I saved it. And we want our button now in this root layout, so go ln.add view and then another button. Okay, there you go. And so now there would be another button. I don't think it would work because there's already a button in that layout, and you would probably have to remove the children or set it into an empty layout because the layout isn't empty. Just then basically put another linear layout inside your layout, right? You will have to, put another layout inside, underneath the button here, wherever. And and then instead of putting it into the root layout, it would now be inside of this linear layout here. Okay? And this would definitely work. Good. And this is how you program an app. Once you're done with your app, you'll set it to release. You go on your project solution and then you go to archive everything, or create archives, whatever. And then it'll start putting your it's now building my app. I don't know if it even can, because nothing is in there. I didn't even set a name to it. At least it's trying. I don't know. Once this is done, you can publish your app. You can put it to you go to distribute, and then you can distribute it onto your computer or wherever you want it. Oh yeah, setting a name to your app, of course, once again, is under your app, under settings. And this is the name of your app. Usually would go com dot and then your company name and then your app name. That's what you usually do. I think even Google Play would actually would have you'd have to do it. There's no way around that. And then set everything else here, and whenever you have a new version, go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only ints are allowed here, so you have to, whenever there's a new version to be uploaded, you have to increment this. You can call this whatever you want. Right? Okay. My friends, this is it. This is how you build an app. This is all you gotta do. It's actually very simple. Even though this app is pretty pointless, but right, that's it. And the rest is coding. And since you all know how to code, I have done my job. And this means I can now finish my recording, which fortunately still works. The video is now an hour long. That's a good time to end it. I thank you all. Check out our apps if you want to know more. Check out the Book of Life, which is the new upcoming thing in social media and gaming. Just give it a go. Check it out if it works. It will crash a lot of times. Tell me your feedback. I'm very interested to know. And thanks for watching. Goodbye, my friends.